Welcome to winter here in Tasmania. It's pretty much the middle of winter, and as is usual with our weather, we've mostly had some showers, some rain, and a lot of overcast weather. That means it doesn't get particularly cold and we don't get a lot of frosts, but it's pretty dismal and not very inspiring. The plants, of course, lack in light, and so they don't exhibit a lot of growth. So I haven't done any videos for about a month because there's simply not been much happening. Minor things, I did plant some snow peas here and they're just popping their heads through the compost, and they're not going to move very quickly for the next month or so. When we come to August, that we're going to start seeing some more light and things like that will really start to move along. There's a couple of other things I will show you later in this video, but first what I wanted to do was actually do a job I perhaps should have done a little earlier, which is to plant some onion seed. Now last season I planted my seed in egg cartons and put it out as a little clump of onion plants, and it did very well and I got a really nice harvest from it. And basically I'm wanting to repeat that again this year and probably do a bit more, so a larger area. So this year I've got two varieties of onion to plant. I've got some Hunter River Brown and Gladolian Brown. Now I think it was a different variety that I grew last year. I don't actually have the packet and I didn't record it, so I'm not really certain what it was. So I'm going to have a go with these. So I'm planting it in egg cartons. Now what I do with these is I tend to plant actually in where the eggs go. And look, you can plant in this area, but it tends to be a little bit floppy. Doesn't break up as well, so I tend to discard that for firelighting and cut this off. Now you could leave these in if you like, but I find it breaks up a little bit easier at the end if you just cut these off. A little snip through there, they're a little bit tough. The toughness really in the egg carton is one of the good things, because while it breaks down sufficiently when you plant it, it holds together sufficiently also during the time when you're wanting it to hold your potting mix, or your seed raising mix rather, in place. So I'm going to do a few of those. I probably will do around about 4 cartons at least, so that's around 4 dozen little clumps this year. Last year I only had 2 dozen clumps, maybe more. I'll just see how far the seed goes, but I'll get at least 4 dozen ready and plant those out and see how much seed I have left. As a final step on these, I am putting a little cut in the base just to drain any excess water from watering them out. Look, it would slowly drain, but it's surprising how much water this type of cardboard will hold. So just that little cut will allow it to drain, and you could, do it in different ways if you like, but this is as easy as anything that I know. Once that's done, I'm using a plastic tray to hold these together, and this one will just contain 3 of these. Nice squeeze, just a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it's just going to hold them nicely in shape. So while I'm working with it and while they're growing, they're not going to move around at all. So I've ended with 6 here because it fits nicely in these trays, and that should give me plenty of onion plants and hopefully at the end of the year plenty of onions. So time to get some seed raising mix organised. I'm just going to strain off some, it's a potting mix with some grit in it, and I just want to make it a bit finer and get rid of some of the coarse stuff out of it. And that way it'll be a lot better for the seeds. And then I'll put a little bit of addition to it as well. If you're wondering how much grit you should add to your potting mix or seed raising mix, look, I didn't mix this. It's something my wife has mixed, so I'm not certain how much is in here, but generally I would put around about 25%, depending on the actual grit type. There's probably a little bit less in that. Now, I like to make it a little bit richer with just a tiny bit of blood and bone in it. And yeah, I'm going to add about that and mix that in just to give it a little bit extra nutrition. Some people don't like adding nutrition to their seed raising mixes, but I always find that I get a little bit better start. So with that well mixed, I can start putting that into these trays, which is nice and easy to do at this point. Lose a little bit down the holes, but not too worried. Now, before putting seed in, I like to actually make sure it's damp, because otherwise when you do water it, the seed is likely to float and stir up. So making sure it's nice and damp first. Now, because this is very dry, I'll water it a couple of times and let it soak in while I get the next lot organised. Now that the potting mix is well saturated, I'm simply going through, I'm using a pencil, use a proper dibble if you've got one, but this is just as good as anything else, to put some little dents where I want to put the seed in, little holes. And being small seed, they don't need to be very big. Some people have their onions in the ground this time of the year already. I find that things grow so slowly across winter that it really doesn't hurt to be a little bit later, though I normally would have started these seeds probably a month ago, so I'm a little bit late this year. So there's a nice lot of seed in there, and I want to try and spread that around. I only really want around about 4 or 5 seeds in each one. So really, if you even end up with only 3 onions in each, it's probably ideal, but anything up to 5 will be okay. So just a little pinch of seed in each one of these. Okay, so I've done all those, and I'm just going to cover those over so that they don't float when I water it. Now, you could use soil blocks. I've used soil blocks, and I have a block maker, and they work fine too, and nice for putting out clumps like this. I suppose I use this method because it's just a little bit easier, a bit lazier than soil blocking. Soil blocking, you have to be more careful with the actual mix that you use than this. This is, you can be pretty free with it. So I'll give it a light spray of water again, and then it's ready to sit to germinate. Just need to do the other one now. So with this second one, I'm using the different variety, the Hunter River Browns. I should point out that with the first tray, there's still heaps of seed Rangeview seeds are nice and generous. There was 400 in there, and I could have easily done this with the same onions, but I'd like to try different onions. Now I've put the trays here where they will get some reasonable light and also some water when I irrigate in the greenhouse, which I do across winter because it doesn't get the rain in here, so you really have to irrigate, and that will keep them nicely watered, and I can keep an eye on it too and get some germination. So they are set. Like I said, we'll go outside and have a look at a couple of other things before we finish. In the last video, I planted this green manure, and as you can see, it's germinated nicely. There's plenty of oats. There's the odd broad bean, still some only just coming through. When it gets a little bit higher, I'm going to let the hens into this patch. The other patch in the veggie garden, the main area, has grown even higher than this, and soon I will put black plastic over it because that's the way I'm going to put that one back into the soil. This I'm going to let the hens return to the soil in the form of poultry manure, which is a way of, again, adding more nutrition. But there's multiple ways which you can use a green crop like this and get it back in the soil. Now, in terms of using the plastic, I'll come and show you an area that I have actually got under plastic already. This section here I planted probably a month earlier than the other, and so the green manure was far more advanced, and about a week ago I got it under plastic. So I'll lift it up and let you have a look at what's happening. Now, I did cut it with the scythe before I covered it, and you'll see it's beginning to yellow off. Where the broad beans, you'll see that they are beginning to break down. There's blackening there as it starts to break down very quickly. With the broad bean, in using that, I'm not really looking to fix nitrogen in the soil from the roots like you often do with broad beans, but I'm looking for the nitrogen that's in the leaf and returning that to the surface of the soil where the worms will feed on it. And again, this as a green crop is high nitrogen and is going to compost on the surface and be food for the worms. But as I said, there's not a lot else going on. Garlic is growing. I have been digging potatoes progressively. There are jobs that I need to get to and do very soon, such as pruning fruit trees, because spring will come before we know it, and I need to be ready for that. So with the fruit trees, I will prune and fertilise. I'm not sure if I'll make any videos about that. I may, depending how the weather and time permits. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with more videos as the season progresses.